My name is Peter-John Vettese. It seems to me that my special purpose, was to be a musician. That's what I identify as. To give it in a hierarchical order, I am stardust coalesced into the shape of a human. For matter flows from place to place and momentarily comes together to be you. And I'm known as Peter, and I appear to be, for some, and mostly for myself, a musician. Would you like to come with me down to Dead End Street? I think it was in the late 80s or the early 90s, late 80s, I'd been doing quite a lot of work with the well-known producer Steve Lipson. I'd been doing keyboards and programming and such like for Steve and I, and Hef worked on the Frankie Goes to Hollywood album. And then Steve and I did, and Hef, I was keyboard player with Simple Minds, which is a Scottish band, and did the Real Life album. And not long after that, I was invited in to work with Annie Lennox. This is about the early 90s. And I felt great affinity for Annie because she's when I talk about Gillian Hills, I talk about a real artist. It's kind of that expression now. The definition of an artist is somewhat debased now, I think, in a popular idiom, because there's commercial music where the artist is the interface, but may not in fact contribute anything to the songwriting or the direction of artistic travel in any way, shape or form, and that's perfectly fine. But Annie is the definition, I believe, or my definition of a real artist, which is, she's defining she's specifying the direction of travel. Let's put it that way, and is obviously a sensational singer and songwriter and so on and so forth. But typically all these things, I call them a cast of characters. You get the right ensemble and perhaps something even more fabulous can happen. And I think that might have been the case for when I was called in. We were working on what would be then her first solo album after having left the Eurythmics. And the album's called Diva, and on Diva there's tracks like Why, Walking in Broken Glass, Little Bird, a track that I co-wrote with Annie called Legend in My Living Room, and many others. But the one of the things that I think I brought to the album was when Annie played me her demo of Walking on Broken Glass. I was instantly I was transported. It made me think of a Stevie Wonder song that I liked an awful lot, where he used the Yamaha GX1, the synthesizer that he called the a Dream Machine. I think it's in Songs in the Key of Life, and it's called Village Ghetto Land, which goes, for those that don't know it, would you like to come with me down to Dead End Street? Village Ghetto Land. And I loved the kind of neoclassical feel that Stevie Wonder and phrasing that I loved that, and it inspired me to have an idea for Walking on Broken Glass. When he played the string quartet sound for Village Ghetto Land, it was like a string quartet without, it was otherworldly. You couldn't quite know what was it, real strings, was it plastic strings, what was it? So I was instantly, I felt like I wanted to do something of that nature, a kind of classical sounding riff, which I laid on Annie and see what they thought of it. But I couldn't bring it to mind straight away, so I flailed about, of course, for a while. At the same time, one of the changes in from the era of sampling and drum machines and so on is that when music started to be sequenced by a digital sequencer, which is recorded into either a computer or a dedicated sequencer, oftentimes, and I think this is probably due to the fact that the memory was computer memory was very expensive at the time, and sampling, for instance, you could only sample 1 or 2 bars worth of stuff. So it meant that these things became discrete 2-bar chunks of something and then repeated. So I had noticed this change from, an 8-bar chorus, or actually during the course of my lifetime, from a 32-bar chorus to 16 to 8, sometimes to 4, and now oftentimes that we find now 1 or 2 bars constitutes the compositional value, or at least in the accompaniment to the melody, is often in 2-bar chunks, and quite often it is only that 2 bars repeated. So I wanted to, and this is again a bit throwbacky. When I used to start tracks, I would want to have a good intro. You know how the modern parlance, or at least at one point, was that there had to be a hook. The hook is now is often understood to be the hook line of the song. But one of the hooks that I grew up wanting to get a hold of was an interesting intro, something to invite the invitable listener in. To the track prior to the song beginning, so an introduction to the song. So when I was thinking about Walking on Broken Glass, I came up with a figure that's exactly 2 bars long, so that it repeats, but it has a cadence at the end of the second repeat. So I was trying to think of what can I play that's 2 bars long, that is a motif that sort of invokes this neoclassical thing. I was thinking about it for a while, and eventually I came up for Walking on Broken Glass this figure. Walking on broken glass. So it goes. The sweetest thing that I ever knew, but I don't care for sugar, honey, I can't have you. Since you've abandoned me, my whole life has crashed. So soft 'cause it feels just like I'm walking on broken glass. And I played it on I programmed a Yamaha TX816, which was the closest I could think of trying to emulate a GX1. A TX816 was 8 Yamaha DX7 synthesizers in a rack. And I programmed each, to have a shift of noise at the front to emulate the bow on a string, and then the string sound, and then the body of the string. And I came up with the riff for Walking on Broken Glass that way.